Well, welcome back to the Know Your Numbers podcast. This is your host, Chris McCormick, and today's guest is James Stratton. James is the creator of the Stratton CRE Index, his very own commercial real estate index that we'll be getting to hear about a little bit more here. He's also very well versed in the commercial real estate space and has some interesting content that he has coming out. So I'm excited to dive into all this and more. James, thank you for dedicating your time with us today. And if you don't mind, just giving a quick introduction about yourself, letting the people know who you are.
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you asking me on today. I'm James Stratton. I'm an old guy, got a lot of gray hair on my head, and I'm retired Air Force. I spent the vast majority of my life traveling the world. I worked on AWACS, which is probably one of the most sophisticated airplanes we have in the Air Force industry, or inventory, I'm sorry. And each one of those bad boys, well, let's put it this way. I don't know many people can afford just one. So we had 36 of them. Whoa. So I was responsible for all of those. And I was also responsible for the ones in NATO. And I helped bring France's AWACS program on board. Wow. And so I've been around for a while. Wow. Then I retired from the Air Force. Normally you see me wear a retired hat. And I do that not so that you see that I'm retired. It's just so that I can look in the mirror and say I'm supposed to be retired. And so I didn't do a very good job at that. I got my family always told me, they said, I can't wait to see it. When you pass away, we'll have to figure out how to tie you down. So that's just the way it is. Yeah. But I went off and I got involved, and I love analytics. And when I was in the Air Force, I worked on your communications, navigations, and crypto devices. And so lots of math, lots of pointy head stuff, and I loved it. And of course, my job took me through many, many different systems. So I'm used to working with lots of things at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. And so when I got out, I was like, well, I want to go back to school. And I went in and got my master's degree in real estate finance. And so now I work in the area of the portfolio optimization. I help developers develop their properties, and I work with public planning or public planners as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I love it. And your energy does radiate through you. So I don't blame you for not finding yourself in retirement. I think the world's a better place with somebody like James Stratton helping people out and dedicating himself to something more. So
I appreciate that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So how long were you in the Air Force? And
22 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The vast majority of my time was spent up at Tinker Air Force Base, which is in Oklahoma City. For a very short stint, I worked on C5s, which is the biggest aircraft we have in our inventory. But for me, Chris, that was the most boring airplane on this earth. I couldn't wait to get out of there and get back to AWACS. But it did allow me to learn all the other aspects of working on jets. So loved it as far as that went.
That's awesome. And something that I recognize in the entrepreneurship space is that a lot of people with military background find themselves in entrepreneurship, business ownership, real estate investing. How has your time in the Air Force impacted your career as a business owner, as a real estate investor?
Well, one of the things you have in being in the military is you get the discipline that comes out of it. And if you take a look at me from when I first came in the Air Force to where I am today, two totally different individuals. Wow. That guy, you don't see him sitting in front of you. But that's how it is. I mean, you're used to a strict schedule of getting things done, and you're very goal oriented. So, and most people, especially those in the Air Force and Navy and the Army, and they have security clearances, and so they're used to keeping people's secrets. And so when I work primarily with buyers and investors. And they don't want James Stratton going around blabbing about their finances. and so they really look for people. It's not so much how much property that you have under management or something of that nature, because that doesn't exude trust. Right. What exudes trust is can you keep a secret, and who will vouch for it? Yeah. Well, United States Air Force vouches that I can keep a secret. Wow. So that's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, yeah, I just have all the respect in the world for anybody who dedicates so much time and energy to the forces like yourself. And again, to see somebody like you not just hanging his hat up on that and continuing to do good in the marketplace is amazing. And so I'd love to transition into that. Is how have you found yourself in the real estate industry? How has it served you? How do you provide the most value and get the benefit of serving a greater purpose?
Well, when I first got into real estate, actually, it was a friend of mine's dad who got me into it. Said, "You really need to go get working some real estate." And I'm like, "I really don't want to do that,"
Right.
because I was thinking sales and things of that nature, and I'm just not that good at it. And I've had businesses before of which you have to sell, but I quickly, once I made enough money, I quickly sent it over to another person, let them go do the sales for me because I was terrible at it. And I believe in a team sport mentality. And I think real estate and most things in business it really revolves around a team sport. And you got to have help from people. And there's many reasons for things. You and I, you're from an accounting background. I'm from a finance background. We have very different disciplines, but there's some overlap. And you might see me produce a report and go, "James, you kind of forgot about this." I didn't even think about it, or it slipped. And or same thing in reverse, it's important to work with teams. And I guess that's where the benefit of that is. I get to work with some really fantastic people, and I'll work with them even from the buyer and investor side at all different phases in their life. Some of them are very wealthy. They're already where they're going to be. What I really like are taking folks that are starting out. They have it in their heart. They're dreaming. And that's okay. They may not have the money at this point. I don't go in there and dash their dreams and say, "Oh, you're not an accredited investor." I go in there and I help them. Hey, this is what you need to learn along the way while you're becoming an accredited investor, because you'll get there.
Wow.
And it's an important thing. And I love it because, today's family offices, which I work a lot with, were yesterday's intro investor.
Right.
They all got here, right?
Yep.
So
that's awesome. Now, what are some of the things that you recommend beginning investors do? Because a lot of our listeners tend to shy away from investing because of the capital reasons, and they are beginning, like they're curious, but they, I've done it too. It's like you have that mindset, like I don't have enough money to get into the industry. So what are some of the things that you teach, James, that might benefit somebody who's looking to get their foot in the door?
Well, one of the things I teach is surround yourself with a mentor that can help you out. And because real estate is an expensive sport too. But investing, I'll give a great example. I had a gentleman actually went to school with me, and we got together, and he had a pretty good sized nest egg set aside. But after I evaluated his portfolio of offerings that he's had in the past, real estate was just not a good option for him. In fact, it would have hurt him today. So, but later, he can start working toward that. And so what I tell people is that if you don't sit back and put your money in a mattress someplace. That's a losing game. Right. And it's losing because inflation is going to eat it. And that happens every year. So, and so the money's worth less every single year. So it's working against you. And, we practice, finance is all about cash flow and the three aspects of it. And those three aspects of, are the magnitude of cash flow I have, the timing of my cash flow, and the risk of that cash flow. Okay? All that fancy math that we do, and we do some pretty fancy math, it really comes down to those three things.
Right.
And the average person can understand, hey, if I got more money coming out of my pocket than what it's keeping in my pocket, I'm in trouble. Okay. And if I need money today, but I'm not going to get paid till 3 weeks from now, I'm probably in some trouble.
Right.
And it's the risk angle. And from the risk part of it, we may have an intuition about the risk. And this is sometimes where we overvalue our overvalue our knowledge of risk or undervalue it. This is where you need the professional come in there and help you and understand what your risk tolerances are and just how risk averse if you are at all. And I tell people that if you got money to put in the bank and save, put it to work.
Right.
And put it to work somewhere. It doesn't have to be in real estate.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can go into the stock market and work with REITs, and you're still working with real estate.
Right.
So
that's good. And yeah, we point a lot of our clients to life insurance and the investment opportunity there. But yeah, real estate and life insurance tend to be two areas where we can watch our money grow. But at the core of it too, like you mentioned, James, is spending less than you make, right? Cash coming in has to be greater than cash going out. So
there's no stopping that.
Right.
Sorry, there's just no stopping that one.
Yeah.
And and that's just the way it is. And the job of finance is to maximize the value or maximize the wealth of our clients by maximizing whatever their investment desire is and reduce the risk. Yeah. And we do that through a number of tools that would take you a while to learn how to use. And so I tell people regularly, and this is something I just die laughing. I get people who want to get involved in real estate. Of course, they want to learn. I got that. But they turn a passive investment into an active investment. And that's a big mistake. Yeah. One is because you got to work someplace and you're taking up all the spare time to figure out how to use your money. Find an expert. You find somebody that you trust. They can go out and help you do that and turn it back into a passive investment. Wow. You'll enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny you say that, because we also talk about how real estate is piped up to be a passive investment, but everybody I talk to seems to make it active, and
they sure do.
It's hard to see the passive ability, but the IRS also won't tell you that you're an active investor unless you meet a bunch of criteria too. So
right.
That's a whole other thing.
And that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we talk about, is that there may be some overlap between what we know, but I have no idea what the tax codes really are. Yeah. I got an idea what's going on because I have to calculate that, right? Yeah. But usually in my day-to-day, when I go to calculate pro formas, I am literally going to go to my client's tax person and say, what do I got?
Yeah.
That's what I got to work with, right? So that's where I get my numbers from. Wow. And so it's important to have a person that, because sometimes people get us confused. And I'm sure you've run into that before too. They don't really understand what the difference between an accountant and finance is. Right. And both roles, while there's some overlap to them, they're very separate from one another and they're necessary. Yeah. So it's great to have those two individuals on your team and a lot of other people.
Amen, man. Amen. I couldn't agree more. I do want to transition a little bit into what you got going on. I mean, you're big on LinkedIn. You create content. You put a lot of great advice out there. But if I'm not mistaken, you do have some seminars and in-person events or online events for a great number of people. Is that correct?
That's true. Actually, we finished off a seminar on Tuesday. That went really well. And then we're doing another one on Friday. That one's already closed off. But I have another one coming up next Tuesday. And it's in the afternoon. I don't have a link for that, but I can send it over to you if you want to get that out to who you want to. But it's got limited space in it. And I teach in there. There's 4 classes or four workshops in there. The first workshop is there's really only one criteria when it comes to finding income generating property. Everything else is just a waste of your time. And then the second one is what's the 10 steps, what I call 10-step pro presentation. Yep. So if you think about it, when you go to, if you've got a person buying a piece of property from you, you want to give the best possible presentation to them to help your project. Because the average person will look at between 50 and 100 projects before they actually decide to buy one. Wow. Don't you want to be the one? Yeah. So you want to help out with that. And then we're going to go through 2 portfolios, one portfolio in Florida and the other portfolio in Texas. Wow. And these are income generating portfolios. And I go through the numbers with those and see how to show people. And these are active investments. So so they're active properties.
That's great. Yeah. So if anybody looking to learn, I mean, come check out James Stratton and what he's got going on, because like I said, just a wealth of knowledge, and he's just giving it out for free. So that's admirable too. And I love to hear about this one thing that people need to look at when it comes to a property. I think we touched a bit on it before we started, but let's dive into it. What is the one thing that we need to be looking at?
Always cash.
Always cash.
Always cash. I'll just cut it short. You still got 3 others that you can look at if you want to. If you think you know all that, great. But a bottom line is a lot of people will sit back. In the state of Texas, for example, and this will also lead into something else I do too, but the state of Texas will list somewhere between 30 and 60,000 income generating properties each month. Same for Florida. They'll do the same thing. And I operate in both Texas and Florida. And it's just humanly impossible to go through that many.
Right.
And I talk about in there, when I first finished off and I got my brokerage up and running, and I threw out everything I ever learned.
Yep.
Because I wanted to get my brokerage up and running.
Right.
and I'd go in and write my reports up on these, because I'm a portfolio guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd write up my portfolio projects, and by the time I got it done, one or more of the properties in the portfolio had sold off, and I was back to square one.
Huh.
And so I'd get so upset, and I was ready to just throw in a towel.
Yeah.
And so I said, I can do this. I program too. So I went through and I said, I just take out quantitative finance handles that whole thing. Yeah. And so I took the principles of quantitative finance, wrote some software out of it, and basically, and it took me 2.5 years to write it up and test it. But basically all it does is it takes those 60,000 properties, and about 20 seconds, it rolls it down to about 25, maybe 30 properties.
Wow.
That can all be used in portfolios. Huh. And so that was great for me. I was like, yay, I'm using this wonderful tool. And I had some friends of mine and said, hey, can I use that tool too? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so that's how the Stratton Index came about.
Okay. Wow.
So a bunch of friends of mine said, hey, you're not keeping that to yourself, are you? Yeah. And I was.
Yeah, right.
So, but then I started letting it out. Now it's gone through many forms. Now it's map-based searching, but you can do it that way. And I've now opened it up for free to anybody. Anybody wants it, they can go look, and they want to go see what those properties are and where they're at. The nice thing about them, it's like taking a gigantic leaf blower to a pile of hay, and you're blowing away everything, and there's just the 25 needles still left in there, right?
Yeah.
And so we talk about that. That's one of the things we're going to be doing on the portfolios on Tuesday as well.
Wow. That's incredible. I didn't know you were giving that away for free too. That's special.
Yeah, I just figured, I think it's, I figure people need help locating them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they still need experts to go help them get the property. Hopefully they will hire me to do that. So that's the concept behind it.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in the biblical concept of reaping what you sow. And if you sow somewhere, you will reap the benefit there. So that's awesome. And now what was the second course you said you were doing? There's the one thing that everybody needs to look at is cash. The second one you have going.
It's a 10-step pro presentation.
Okay. All right.
So a lot of times I sit in on syndicated presentations and even partnership presentations where they're trying to get a partnership going to where they bring in a partner or a limited partner to help them buy into a project. And one of the things that I've seen over the course of that time is, remember, I'm horrible at sales, but I'm good at process.
Yeah.
Really good at process. And I've seen enough sales process over the time. And what do I look for? And I'm always looking to head off objections before they ever happen. And what I see is a lot of people try to wing a presentation. And I got news for you, Chris. If you're asking your client or a potential partner for $10,000 or a couple $100,000 or $1 million, don't wing it.
Right.
No, don't wing it. So I can see it a mile away, and so can they. And so this 10-step presentation is designed to help you put together a presentation, a framework of ones that's designed to help you overcome objections before they ever occur.
Wow.
Now, I'm a firm believer in objections. I like objections. One of the things I've learned in my lifetime is people who are not interested don't object.
Right.
They're just not interested. Why would you object? Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And people who are hiding things also don't object. So I always will push a person till at least they tell me something. Okay, all right. Now you've said something I gotta go think about. Great. Let's go think about it. Okay. And I talk about how to handle that in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's that 10-step presentation. That's also gonna be in there.
Wow. Man, I don't know what it is about you, James. I think it's your energy. I think something comes off as you would be a pretty good salesman, not in a negative connotation, but somebody who can sell and just relate to somebody else. I think that's at the key of selling. And something tells me that you've grown into that too over time, because I mean, to be in business for yourself, you got to have the art of selling to you.
Yeah, well, that's what they tell me, but I'll tell you, I don't like it at all.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's what it is. You don't like it, but you're just good at it. That's a good thing.
Well,
that's a good
the
thing.
thing about it is, I know I'm actually an introvert.
Yeah.
The answer is I'm actually an introvert, but sometimes I have to wait around all day, and I save up enough energy, and I come out of come out there and I throw some energy at you.
Wow. Yeah. That's good. That's so good. What is the one thing that you think holds people back from getting started in real estate?
Overthinking it.
Yeah.
They really do. They overthink it. They want to carry too much load on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to.
Wow.
If they have enough money to invest in real estate, the small amount of money they need to pay in order to have experts help them is so minuscule at the end of the day that it's crazy to do that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to the doctor and just telling the doctor, well, what's wrong with you? Why do you need a doctor for that?
Right.
You know that, right? But you'll get it wrong. We have a word for that. Usually, I think they call them hypochondriacs.
Yeah. Right. That's like
so. So I think that's the big thing that holds people back is that they overthink it. They don't have enough confidence in themselves because they're overthinking it, and they want to carry too much load on themselves.
Wow.
And if they'll just simply say, "Hey, this is my objective," and hand it to the right experts, and let them do it. And the first criteria, everything's a filter. If you can't handle paying an expert to help you get into real estate, then you probably shouldn't.
Wow.
Today. But that doesn't mean you can't work toward it in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you can't work toward it in the future. But so that's, I think, is the big thing.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of talk out there about, I mean, the who not how mentality, and also just investing into the right people. And as an accountant, I kind of relate to that quite a bit. It's like you can prepare your own taxes, but chances are you're missing a couple things and paying the government a little more than you need to. And I'm sure that's the same I know that's the same for real estate investing. If I'm looking to put some money down, I'm going to be turning to guys like James Stratton and other people who have been there and walked the walk and have had some great success with it. So, man, that's awesome. And before we close, James, is there anything on the top of your head that you'd like to talk about a little bit more? I know you got the seminars coming up. Is that something that you're going to be doing quite often? Just kind of.
Yeah, I'm going to be putting together I also have some content that I'm redoing over on Podia. I don't know if you ever heard of them before, but they're a content. They're kind of like Patreon.
Okay.
In fact, I was on Patreon long before that.
Yeah.
I just like Podia. Podia did a much better job, and I'm in the process of redoing that site right now. And I'm getting ready to create some mastermind courses that will come out of that. And one of those is a great opportunity for people that needs just some personal help with putting together those presentations or doing the financials for the company and knowing, well, how do I go about getting this loan?
Yep.
How do I track my partners? Do I need a CMBS note, if you even know what that is? So a CMBS note. And so I teach people how to do that. And that's kind of some aspects of it's one-on-one. Other aspects of it are more of a group kind of thing. I think you can get a lot of learning from people that are in a group. So
good. And are you still doing YouTube videos?
Oh no. Those things take so much of my effort.
They do.
They really
do. Take a lot of time. Yeah.
And I'm a numbers guy, so most of the time I spend my time with a spreadsheet up there.
Right.
And I just want to be able to look at that. And I have you ever seen how who am I thinking of? Was on Damn Yankees. Who was the lead guitar for Damn Yankees? Ted Nugent.
Okay,
so so Ted Nugent, when he's playing, he gets really getting into his music. He gets those facial things going.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but when I start digging around in numbers, my face starts doing all kinds of things.
Wow.
So it's kind of funny just to watch that, so I usually don't show it.
Yeah. That's incredible. I'm sure a lot of people are like, wow, I need to get in touch with this guy to do all my numbers.
Well, enjoy doing it, so let me know.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome, James. Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us. Before we close, I do have one final question, but before we get that, how can people get in touch with you? How can they log into these events and just follow along with what you're doing?
Probably the very best thing to do is if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I actually have a number of ways to get in touch with me there. You can also email me directly at james.stratton@otgrea.com.
Okay.
And I'll reach out from there. That makes it a lot easier. But if you can get onto LinkedIn, that's my primary platform. I'm not very active. I have things on other platforms. I'm just not as active on them.
Right.
And I will always post new content to that.
Awesome.
And that way people know where to go get things.
That's great. And yeah, we can link the contact information and his LinkedIn profile in the show notes down there. But this has been a blessing, James. I appreciate you coming in here. But
Oh,
we
this
do
was
have
fun. I enjoyed it.
we have one final question that we ask all our guests here at the Know Your Numbers podcast, and that is, James Stratton, what is one truth about money that most people regard as myth?
The truth about money that most people regard as myth. Most people think they don't have enough money, and they actually do.
Wow.
They just don't know. They haven't organized it right.
That is so good. That is so good. And that's, yeah, from a real estate perspective too, I find that is the case for most people, and business perspective, and just investing in general. So, man, that's awesome. And I think that's the first time answer from our guest. So good for you for being a unique.
Well, Chris, hey, thank you very much for letting me come sit down with your audience, and I hope they got something out of it. And really, I enjoyed speaking. It's a lot of fun.
Hey,
And
it's awesome. Our pleasure,
right.
James. And yeah, listeners, thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and give James a follow on LinkedIn and check out his website and page there. But until next time, James Stratton, thank you very much. We appreciate you and look forward to connecting soon.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you. You guys take care. Stay out of the heat.
Yeah.